putting this amazing group of speakers and having me today for CollabDays Greece. I think, Chris, this is the first time this community event is being held in a Greek way of form, I would say.
Yes, so that's right.
It's amazing, and hopefully, other community, large scale community events to have this sense of Greece inside, I would say. Let's hope for the best. With all the people that are participating in community events, being active in the communities, etc. We're trying our best to bring content, to bring speakers, to bring technology localized as much as we can do. Unfortunately, today, the spoken language is not Greek because we have people participating in many countries. So bear with me. I will be speaking in English, not my native language, but nevertheless, I'm doing well, I would say. So again, thank you for joining my session. Whether you're starting your FinOps journey or you are already in the process, or trying to deep dive in cloud governance, today's session, I would say, is an informative DAS awareness, rather a deep technical session. So my goal today would be to help you and all together demystify what is all about cloud cost management, and to show you that how growth doesn't mean that we need to break the bank or create a chaos. So what we're going to do today is we're going to explore practical strategies, native tools, real world examples that you can take it and bring it back to your teams and start working towards that direction after this session, hopefully. So my session, as mentioned, is about FinOps and how we can infuse this FinOps into our Azure environment and platform using native tools that we're going to explore in a moment. So before I'm going to start with all this, crazy buzzwords, etc., allow me a moment to introduce myself to you. My name is George Markou. I'm an Azure MVP and MCT community lead for the territory of Greece. I won't say anything else. Here are my handlers. You can follow me on Twitter. You can, if you want to connect with me, try to reach out in LinkedIn. I have a personal blog site in which I'm often I don't have a very good cadence, I would say, but I'm uploading stuff about the things I like the most and also the things I'm working on. And also you can find a bit of projects that I'm also working and uploading on GitHub. So this is my handler as well. Something I missed including here is that I also have a YouTube channel. It's called Cloud Technology Tuesdays, in which the content is being uploaded in the form of video. It's pure localized in Greece. I would say I don't have any content in English, unfortunately, for people outside of Greece, and they are not native speakers. So yeah, please search for it, subscribe, and hope you like it. Now, moving on, and let's start, diving a bit into our topic for today. What we're going to try to challenge today is a common misconception, I would say, is that when scaling cloud environments, that inevitably can lead to a cost chaos. Okay, what is the actual truth? The actual truth is that growth can be strategic, of course, predictable, and cost aware. Of course, by having the right tools and the right mindset. This is the most important, because the tools are being operated up to now, because we have agentic AI stuff, etc., and new things are landing in the landscape that is constantly evolving and growing and moving forward. But the tools are operated by people, and even by having the right tools doesn't mean that we are good to go, or we can the outcome would be the one we expect. It doesn't have to be so. So it's a combination, I would say, tools, people, and mindset, and culture, of course. This leads to culture. So as the cloud adoption is accelerating, more services, more regions, more users are coming in, our platform is growing, but growth alone, I would say, isn't the problem. The problem is if we left it intentionally, I would say, unmanaged. And this is where chaos will kick in. So this is a very vague statement here. I mean, cloud growth leads to cost chaos. This hasn't to be the case, to be honest, but we need to work towards in embracing this new operating model, what is called cloud, and embracing how the financials on cloud are being made. This is the most important, because previously in the on-premises world, we had the CapEx operating model in terms of financials. We had the plan to grow our infrastructure, to expand our infrastructure, to regenerate our infrastructure, and there was a price for it. A price that leads to an investment that in 3 up to 5 years, the life cycle of this investment will be closed. And we had, inevitably, we will have to think of what we need to do next, if we need to upgrade, replace, in general, regenerate this infrastructure, and what needs to be done. So once-off investment, other hidden costs, within once-off investment, but nevertheless, this is something we had to live about for the next 3 or 5 years. And then the cloud came. And when the cloud came, things have changed. A lot of organizations didn't know, how to handle this shift. They were previously, I would say, acquainted with the OpEx model, but with licensing. Like, licensing, for example, with SAS services like Microsoft 365, Dynamics, etc., Teams, blah, 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 blah. So when the cloud, infrastructure and the hyperscalers came to our life, this is where the mess became. Also, we had other unfortunate events in the way, like COVID. COVID was a rapid accelerator, I would say, in the cloud adoption, and not, the cloud adoption, like meaning, business applications, etc., but on the cloud infrastructure space, meaning hyperscalers. And people, through this unfortunate event, run like crazy to build infrastructure on the cloud to be able to keep up with what was happening, or because they couldn't find availability, and the lead time for deliveries for hardware, etc., was, at that time was like, 6 months, 8 months, 1 year. So the organization couldn't, shut down the business in order to keep operating. So they start, embracing, rapidly adopting the cloud, but they overlooked something. And what they overlooked is how the cloud works in terms of financials, meaning that the cloud is working, is operating in a manner pay as you go, pay as you grow. And this leads to the fact that as much as you use it, and in the volume that you use it, you get to pay for it. And it's not like that you get to pay for it, once per year, which is the anniversary date for your license, etc., for OpEx, etc. No, you have to pay for it from the very moment that you are using it. And this is where the chaos began, because, everybody ran to accelerate everything, to be able to save their business, etc. They didn't have the clear strategy in adopting the cloud the right way, and also, figuring out how the economics is working. And this is where the chaos came. But this doesn't have to be the case. As I would say, the landscape constantly evolving. We have new regulations. We have new things that we need to meet conformity, new things that are coming in our way, etc. And we need to deal about it. So we have new roles, jumping in this landscape, and we have new responsibilities and more discrete roles about handling the right things. And this is where we got FinOps. FinOps, I would say, we call it financial operations, but the short word or the abbreviation, we usually refer to it as a FinOps. And what a FinOps is a collaborative discipline that brings together engineering, finance, and business teams to manage cloud costs effectively. And not only the cloud costs that has to do with SAS services like Microsoft 365, etc. Or not only the hyperscalers, but everything as a whole. Whatever OpEx I have that is related to cloud, I need to have someone monitor it, making the right adjustments, optimize it, recharge the costs, and keep financially accountable all the business teams within the organization. And this is where FinOps kicks in. Okay? And this is the most important, I would say. Now, FinOps as a framework, because this is how we refer to it as a framework, is a framework in which adheres to some basic principles. Also, it has in the center of it a maturity model, and this maturity model, I would say, is being divided into three, I would say, phases. The first phase, as you can see, is the crawl phase. And this is the, I would say, phase in which the organizations start their journey towards to sustainable financial operations when it comes down to cloud. This is where they are doing their baby steps, and they are trying to understand how the cloud spend is working, where they spend their money by using the cloud, and how they are using the cloud and they are paying for it. In that phase, cost data may be siloed, often delayed, hard to interpret, okay? And this is where organizations start to setting up some baselines about how they can gain visibility into it, into the cost meaning, and also to start reporting and surface the cost in order to get better insights about how they are spending their money in the cloud. Now, the second phase is related, and also we call it as a walk phase. So this is where the organizations start to mature a bit. And during the walk phase, we have a better sense of visibility. I mean, we are able to surface, report the costs that occurs following the adoption of the cloud. We have teams that previously were siloed, like engineering teams, product teams, and finance working together and collaborating. And this is where we start by, having some tangible data after being able to properly report the cost, to start doing some optimization actions in order to reduce our spending and also cut out the waste. What I would like to say is that, cutting down the costs, avoiding cost overrun, and also reducing the waste, it's not, how can I say, it's not like a marathon. Also, we have a marathon here this week in Greece, the classic one. It's not a marathon for avoiding cost overrun. it's, I would say, a strategic move and a strategic kind of working in order this money that we're going to reduce and this cost that we're going to avoid to be reinvested within the organization for other strategic initiatives. And this is the most important, and this is the most important thing you need to keep top of mind, that avoiding cost overrun, reducing the waste is not, I would say, a continuous marathon for avoiding cost overrun to hit the ceiling. It's a strategic thing that will allow you to invest this money to increase your, I would say, how can I say? I forgot the word. Sorry for that. To your revenue as an organization by investing into new technology, using this money in order to get a better revenue as an organization. And this is the most important. This is the most important. People that are close to these platforms, meaning the hyperscalers like Microsoft Azure, and they are the ones, I would say, the front line in being able to handle and adjust this platform in order to gain proper visibilities about the costs. They need to articulate to teams that they don't know so much about technology what this is all about. And during this phase of the work, this is where start realizing all of these things that started since the crawl phase. Now, during the run phase, this is where we get more mature, I would say, but this is not, I would say, maturity is not something that comes once. It's that you continuously reiterate. It's not that you reaching this phase and you stop. I have everything I need. This is how it will work from now on. I set it to autopilot. No, it doesn't work like that. You are mature, but you need to constantly, continuously reiterate and make sure and safeguard this, what you have achieved as an organization. How you can do that? During the run phase, this is where, the good things kicks in, like automation, governance, and other things that has to do with controls and guardrails that will allow you to safeguard what you have achieved through all this journey. And as I say, FinOps is a journey. This is something you start and you go. You never stop. Okay. But this journey, other than the phases, also relies into specific, I would say, pillars. And these pillars are to be informed, meaning that you need to understand where the money is going, to continuous optimize, as we said, meaning that make smart choices to reduce the waste. And this waste that you're going to reduce, to, in a smart way, reinvest it for strategical purposes, and also to create more opportunities for the organization to increase the revenue. And the third pillar, I would say, is the most important. You need to learn how to operate by having FinOps top of mind. You need to build your processes, and you need guardrails to stay on track. And one last thing, think of FinOps as a DevOps, I would say, practice for your cloud budget in an agile, transparent, and scalable way. Now, let's be more specific. How we can infuse these principles and practices into our Azure platform, and more specifically into our Azure landing zones. These Azure landing zones, it's a concept, it's a reference architecture, is a pre-built environment as we refer to it, with all the plumbing in place, etc. So how we can make sure that all of these are there? Because in Azure, I can see 15 people here at least joining right now. And I don't know if all of you, have past experiences with Azure, etc., or this is a very good opportunity, to get more knowledgeable about Azure while being in this session, I hope so, is that there is anywhere within the Azure platform, if we go afterwards, into the Azure portal, we're not going to see any FinOps, buzzword or financial operations, etc. Nothing in there. Other than that, we have tools in order to be able to keep up with all these practices and key pillars that are shaping the FinOps framework. So how we can, for instance, how we can infuse FinOps practices and principles into an Azure landing zone. As you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, we have a very, high-level blueprint that depicts an Azure landing zone. On the top, it's called FinOps route, but actually what it is a management group hierarchy organization. Beneath that, we have another management group. And then we have the resources and the resource groups. As you can see, there are plenty of familiar, I would say, words that resolves into Azure services and platform tools, in which most of you, most probably, are already using. So let's be more specific. What are the tools? How we can use the native tools to contribute into a FinOps-ready Azure landing zone. So I've made them up on the left-hand side for you. So the first one is the management group. Management group, I would say, is the king of resource organization when it comes down to Azure. We have the management groups can encapsulate other resources, such as management groups as the nested ones, subscriptions, Azure's, and resource groups and Azure resources. So management group, other than a boundary for assigning Azure policies and also acting as a access management boundary, because we can assign role-based access control on the management groups, and this will be inherited and cascaded into the nested resources, meaning other management groups, subscription, resource groups, and Azure resources. It can be used to control and report the budget. So this is very important. And when it comes down to resource management, also keep that in top of mind. Then the subscription level. Subscription fundamentally acts as a financial and billing boundary, other than the other things, okay, that it stands for. So cost recharging to teams and environments is more discrete by having separate subscriptions to accommodate the needs for resources for teams and individuals, if possible. Because there might be the case that we are a very small organization, meaning a small enterprise in the eyes of Microsoft. So there's no need to have so many subscriptions. My resources is not so many. The workloads that I'm using and hosted on Azure, there are not so many. So in that case, we can shift our focus into other things, like the ones below, resource tags. Resource tags is the capability, other than infusing metadata into our resources, is an enabler that allows us to enable chargeback and showback per workload. So given the tag we have specified into a resource group, and subscription, these are the scopes that is applicable to the resource tags, we can easily charge back and show back the cost per workload. Budgets and cost anomaly alerts. Budgets can be assigned in any of these scopes of resources. So budget actually acts as a guardrail in order to be able to monitor assign budget into a specific scope, and by this we will be able to report it and also get notified if the threshold or the budget has been met. Okay. Cost anomaly alerts, on the other side, is, I would say, a unique kind of alert that allow us to monitor the cost throughout the day, throughout the billing month, and report back to us by sending an alert whether there was an anomaly in the cost, a spike that may lead at the end of the month or during the billing month into a cost increase. On the other hand, Azure policy, this is how we're going to make sure that tools such as resource tags, budgets, and other things that contribute into a more, optimized, financially operated, I would say, platform will be enforced. And by this, we won't have to chase anyone. And, writing all day long policies, etc. I mean, the whole purpose here is not only having, in written form the policies, is to be able to enforce them by having a way of, automating stuff. And this is where Azure policy kicks in. And last but not least, log analytics, in which we can export financial data and then infuse them to a tool like Data Explorer, etc., or use log analytics, transform the data and put them in there and start building dashboards, etc. Now, in the platform, we have native tools that can contribute into a more financial operated, I would say, optimized or lead to conformity, etc., and make sure we have everything into control by adopting native tools of the platform that literally cost zero. Honestly, their cost zero money. They're waiting for us to start using them in the right manner, I would say. And as we said, Azure policy, Azure Advisor, also alerts that comes in from Advisor and also digest that we can have in a weekly, bi-weekly or monthly, if I recall, cadence. Cost management and billing, budgets, cost anomaly alerts, and resource tags. Literally, they cost zero. No money at all. All right? Last, we discussed about the FinOps framework. We discussed about the FinOps phases of the journey, the key pillars, etc. The thing is that how we map all of this into Azure, how we translate and map them into Azure services that can contribute in achieving these key pillars that comes with the framework. For the inform, I would say, phase, we can use tags and cost analysis. Also, free of charge tools. For the optimize, we can cost recharge to teams or environments. How we can do that? If we have accomplished whatever is required during the inform phase, then using tags and cost analysis, we can start by having this data, financial data flowing in, we can start cost recharging to teams and environments. I mean, no, not we, it's not expected by us as technical people and technical audience, but from the moment we can surface, expose, and able to report this data, we can work with financial teams to be able to help them report as well and recharge and show back the costs when it comes down to platform usage from different teams that are contributing, to the total cost of the platform. And last, during the operate, we enable chargeback and showback per workload, per different workload. So now I'm gonna be, let's try to visualize a couple of things because, slides are good, talking is good, but let's try to get a hands-on experience of, what we have been discussing up to now. Okay. So let me begin top to bottom with the elements that can contribute to a FinOps ready landing zone. So the first one is the management groups. Management groups, it's an essential thing when it comes down to Cloud Adoption Framework, which is the framework of Microsoft when you're looking to, adopt the cloud the right way, especially when you are looking into Azure. So other than, how you need to do it, practices, and a lot of, write-up, there are proven reference architectures that you can make use of. Even you can use with the press of a button, you can start deploying, a reference architecture and start shaping your environment the right way. Management groups always has been vital to this, and it's, I would say, something you need to start using. Again, even if you are a small enterprise, medium or large enterprise, do it. Even if you have one subscription, or you may have 1,000 subscriptions, it doesn't matter, because now you may be small, tomorrow you may be, large enterprise. Today you're starting your journey with one subscription and a couple of resources. In a year from now, you may be having 100 subscriptions. It doesn't matter. You need to have the proper plumbing, the right organization from the very beginning. So start your journey with management groups. Create your management groups and start placing your subscriptions into these management groups. There is a specific reference architecture for that, based on Cloud Adoption Framework, but nevertheless, you can deviate from that, but having top of mind to adhere to the right processes and practices that comes from Cloud Adoption Framework. So what do we have here? Let me zoom out a bit. So here I followed the best practices from Cloud Adoption Framework, and I created a management or intermediate management group. This management groups is the first, I would say, level under the tenant root group. It's a very bad practice, I would say, to keep only the tenant root group and having their, assigning permissions into it, or creating policies and store them there. It's a very bad practice, because the blast radius can be very big, because it's the tenant root group. So, by adhering the practices, please create another one and start, building your management group hierarchy beneath that, or multiple management group hierarchies. So here I created a management group, and I created some management groups, and I've created my subscriptions. So what can I do with this structure, and how it can help me to adhere to these practices that we've seen earlier? Let me start drawing a bit. So what can I do using the management group structure in order to start, again, adhering to this practice? The first one is with management group, role-based access control. Who can see what? Also financial data. Okay, they can see financial data, but financial data may be in a raw format, scrambled, etc. What else do I need to do in order to be able to show back properly the data? One thing we said and discussed is the resource tags. Resource tags in subscription, resource groups, and resources. So on the scope of a management group, I can create what we called Azure policies. In these Azure policies, I can be very, picky. I can be very specific what I want in terms of governing my policies. So if I go on the Azure policies, and if I go on the assignments, and if I select my scope, management group, just a sec, You will see I have created two in the spirit of today's presentation, I've created two policies. The one is a policy initiative, the second one is a policy definition. What is the difference? An initiative is a group of policy definitions, whereas the policy definition is only a single thing. So I've created two policies in order to be able to govern tagging in my environment. And I have assigned it in the management group scope. So what does this mean? That this specific, I will be very quick about that because being cautious of the time. The first policy initiative that you can see over here, and this is the one, it makes sure that resources contained within resource groups are always inheriting tags, meaning tag names and tag values from the resource group they are contained in. And this is happening automatically. Every time I'm creating a new resource, every time this resource is getting the tag names and the tag values I have specified in the policy. By this, I'm able to ship something and deliver something in less time because I don't have to do data entry all the time, adding, tag names and values. The second one is policy definition that I have assigned is one that we need to observe how we can make sure that in resource groups, because previously I spoke about, also have a flying, fur ball here from the cat. I discussed about enforcing and governing tagging on the other resource level. But on the resource groups, what are we doing? I've created, for demo purposes, another policy that also makes sure that a tag, a specific tag, is present on the resource group level. This might jeopardize a couple of things like, okay, if someone tries to deploy something without setting the cost center tag on the resource group, then the deployment will fail. Okay. Then the second time he tries, he adds as a tag name, tag name, the cost center, but he doesn't state any value. This is where the deployment will succeed. But again, we will be missing a value. Okay. So this is like a gray area, but nevertheless, this is how we make them more aware, more responsible, the teams, when deploying resources, and more responsible, by adopting tags and the right ones. We can also set this kind of policies also for the other scope that supports tagging, like subscription. And by this, we can complete this complete life cycle, I would say, of resources in which they can be tagged. And everything can be covered through policies. Again, through policies, we can do the following. We can observe and audit and report compliance. How many resources are tagged? How many resources needs to be tagged? Because they don't have any tags. And by this, we can run a remediation task through this management view of the policies in order to make sure that the tags, that resources that don't have any tags are being remediated automatically. Okay? So let's go to a subscription to observe 6 minutes still. If we go to the management group, if we go through cost management and billing, if we go through billing, if we go on the subscription itself, we are able to report the costs. If we go to the subscription, we are very limited only to the scope of the subscription to report the costs. If we go to a higher level, meaning management group or billing account, etc., we're able to report all the costs for all the underlying subscriptions that are contained within a scope that we are selecting at that time. Okay. Now I'm very, focused on one specific subscription and the costs here. So here what we have the actual cost, the actuals as we call, as of now. And we also have a forecast from the platform that says that I see that, your trending in consumption is like, I don't know, €5 per day. So if you keep burning in the same rate resources, you will end up at the end of the month at this specific, I would say, amount of money that you need to compensate. All right. So we also have, forecasting. It's not that we wait for the end of the month to learn, how much money I need to pay. It's also predictable. Predictable is how we build the resources, how we're using the platform, and if we need to expand, etc. Again, we can predict the cost. Of course, there is sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. I mean, this is how cloud works. Okay. So here we can start working with filters. I think this will not work because I deployed the resources today. If the tags that I've deployed earlier today were working, because this is historical data in terms of, how can I say, cost, then I will be shown the option to choose a tag in order to group my costs. So in the case that I have a resource group, that I have a tag that is application X, I can group the costs that is related to application X. If I have resources with the tag, name, and value, cost center equals finance, then I can group the costs that equals to the group of finance. Okay. Budgets. As mentioned, we can create budgets, and these budgets have 2 dimensions. The first one is for us to be informed, and the second is to keep an eye on, to be on alert about whether the forecasted, budget that we had for this application or set of resources will be met before the end of the billing month. So it's like for us being proactive. All right. And the cost anomaly alerts, as we discussed, is that we can create cost anomaly alerts to observe the curve in the consumption. And if it sees any spike, either way of the axis, meaning up or down, it will send us an alert automatically. Okay. And one for the, okay, let me go and create, let's see the effect of the policies. Test RG, next. Okay. Can you see here, when I'm trying to create a resource group, it says that require cost center tag on the resource groups. So by this, I can sleep a bit better at night, having the right guardrails within my environment to know that they will keep everyone on track, and without for me going, afterwards and trying to find where is the issue, what are the gaps, and all the time. I mean, this is a continuous process of reiteration, but nevertheless, by this, I don't have to yell at the teams. I don't have to be on top of them. I only need to have the right policies, infusing the right guardrails to keep my environment FinOps ready. And this is something we can, have. Call to action. Please adhere to resource organization principles. If you go back to Cloud Adoption Framework, you can see so many things. You can get so much information. You don't need to have a PhD on something, etc. It's written in human format, and keep it stupid, simple kind of way. So make sure you adhere to resource organization principles, because by that you will be able to display the cost more easily. For instance, if you have multiple applications within a resource group, grouped, then it will be more hard for you to keep up with the tagging. If you have one application per resource group, then the tags on the resource groups, and by having a policy, inheriting everything beneath, it will be just fine and easy peasy. So this is what I'm meaning when I'm referring to resource organization principles on Azure. Leverage what's built in. All the tools that we discussed, all the tools you have seen throughout the presentation, make use of them. Start playing. You won't break anything. Nothing will explode. Okay. Also build your processes as per, the FinOps practices. Don't afraid to fail, and always reiterate. This is a continuous process that requires continuous improvement. And with that, thank you so much for having me, and I hope you got, the most out of it. I know some people here are more, I would say, acquainted with the platform. I see some familiar names, etc. But it's good, again, to hear all of these things, because sometimes what we think is, given, etc., is the ones that we usually ignore. Thank you so much. Chris,
Thank you, George.
over to you.
Thank you, George, for your time and effort. And it's quite good that you show us how we can calculate the money that we spend on Azure, because most companies struggle about this. Okay, let's see if we have any comments in the chat. I don't see any comments. So thanks again. The next presentation will start at 3 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.